Despite having a YouTube channel where I predominantly talk about games and making games, the few exceptions aside, I've talked about remarkably few of the games I've actually made. So here we go, let's do 3 at once. Boogle. This was an entry to a game jam in 2016, which meant that the entire thing had to be developed in 24 hours. The theme was Overlords, which I very tenuously took inspiration from. Things drop, and you have to prevent them from hitting the floor by laying down tiles. The game is that the floor expands over time, so there's more surface area to defend, more tiles to lay, so things get harder and harder. I won an award for Best Use of Tech, which I didn't really feel was deserved. It was pretty much granted on the basis that my game was the only 3D title amongst a sea of 2D games, but honestly that's no real justification. The intuitive expectation, I think, is that developing for 3D is much harder than for 2D, but if there's a difference, then it's completely negligible, especially compared to whether your game actually has any artwork or asset requirements, which, mine evidently didn't. Besides, this game takes place on a single 2D plane anyway, so it's not like any time was spent developing much verticality. Next up is Towers, literally just a board game, but in Unity. I wanted to experiment with this idea that had been stuck in my head about moving units forward on a board and then freezing them in place, which would gain you some sort of tactical advantage at the cost of having fewer units later into the game. The thing that I actually made wasn't exactly very deep, but it was fun, and I didn't feel like developing software, because God knows our uni makes us do enough of that. I got no awards for this one, unsurprisingly, but yeah, you've got cubes and pyramids, you can stack them to make towers, and then you can fling the pyramids off the top, across a distance equal to the tower's height. Funnily enough, this advantageous strategy was probably the result of, or probably resulted in more games being lost than won, because by flinging your pyramids away, you isolated them and they got easily picked off by the enemy. And then, without having any pyramids, you no longer have any long-range capabilities, and you get picked off yourself, so it proved to be more of a psychologically off-putting thing than anything objectively useful, as demonstrated by plenty of people who lost to the computer, which literally just plays moves randomly. Look at that thing. The code itself was pretty garbage for this as well, but I did experiment with some Unity stuff that was new to me, like a lot of mouse-clicking interface kind of control, so I'm glad I made it, if not to have a good game by itself to enable future good games. And finally, Owl Sprees, the name of which means absolutely nothing, it's just an anagram of the theme. This one did win an award. I won the 2017 Game Jam and received an Echo Dot. This one was a 24-hour development dream. I finished all the code in like 5 hours, and then I had the rest of the time to design the levels. I could have had many more levels too, if I hadn't run out of creativity juice after about 10 hours of level design. I still might make more levels for this actually, as it's probably the closest thing to a completely finished game that I've ever made, plus I'm pretty sure it's Turing Complete, so I'd like to do some fun stuff with that. To be Turing Complete is to be able to simulate a Turing machine, a hypothetical computer with a tape of unlimited length and the ability to read/write whatever you like onto that tape. With those two things, you can compute any and everything that is computable, from simulating Game of Life to calculating the mass of your mum. Owl Sprees introduces a type of button halfway through which moves cubes in a given direction when they're pressed. So by default, a cube that is pushed onto a button by another button doesn't activate it, but I left a setting in the code that makes this possible, so I reckon you could use cube positions as data on the tape, and the buttons themselves acting as read/write commands. So yeah, I think you could simulate a Turing machine using this, which is maybe something I'll do in the future. But yeah, that's Owl Sprees. There you go, 3 Harvey games, very much in a trilogy, as they were all made in under a day and they all look exactly the same. The game I worked on, actually after these, had a radically different art style and theme, so I might talk about that one in a different video. Did you like this video? If you did, drop me a comment and tell me why. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.